Hello, and thank you all again for joining us for the March Brown Bag Seminar. I am Dr. Erica DeQueer. I come with you as one of the co-moderators. Dr. Claudia Calder is also moderating this session with us. And we have some special guests that we have invited as a part of this session. So we are going to begin with our first question that you all see on your screen. And I am going to ask our first special guest, who is Principal McDavid, to tell us about yourself and your school.
Okay, it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you so very much, Dr. DeQueer, for the invitation, and Dr. Ladd. My name is Felisa McDavid, and I am the principal of St. James Elementary School in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I am also a student in the Ed Leadership program, specialist degree program at Albany State University. My school is located on the Grand Strand of South Carolina. We have currently 775 students at my school. We have lost a considerable amount due to COVID. So leadership during COVID has also included having to deal with loss of students to virtual school, homeschooling, and other options that parents have chosen. Our demographics, a little bit about our demographics of our school. We are 77% white, 8% Hispanic, 5% African American, and 1% Asian. The school is very, very high performing in a quite affluent area of South Carolina in Horry County. I have been principal there here for 7 years and administrator for 15 years. So I am very, very happy to be a part of this discussion this afternoon.
Thank you. We are happy to have you. And now we will move on to our next special guest, Principal Bates.
Good afternoon to each of you. My name is Natasha Bates. I am principal at Dundee Elementary School in Tunica County in Mississippi. Currently, we are an A school. We are at the top level in performance in the state of Mississippi. We have 137 students. And as she said before, we do have a decrease in the number of students that we have here on campus because of COVID. Many of our students are virtual, and we do have some who are homeschooled as a result. I am in the PhD program at the University of Mississippi. So we're in our final steps with the dissertation. So we're hoping for great results from that. I've been here for 16 years at Dundee Elementary School. I started out as a teacher, then an assistant principal, and now I have been principal for 8 years. So my 16 years have been here at Dundee Elementary School. So thank you all for having me, and I look forward to awesome dialogue with you all today.
Thank you for being here. We are happy to have you. And we also have Principal Gaston. Can you please tell us a bit about yourself and your school?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. And please excuse me, I'm really trying to navigate this platform. We've used Teams, we've used Zoom, and this is my first time on here, but I'm so honored Dr. Ladd asked me to join you guys today. Again, my name's Terry Gaston. Originally, I'm from Greenville, Mississippi, but I am currently the principal of Power Center Academy High School here in Memphis, Tennessee. It is a 9 through 12 charter school, and we service about 700 scholars. Started off as a teacher, then moved up into a principal residency program through New Leaders. And pretty much my trajectory from there led me to be the 9th grade academy principal and finally the principal of Power Center Academy High School. I'm currently completing a fellowship with Relay Graduate School of Education and National Principal Academy Fellowship, which really has afforded me the opportunity to consider some of these questions you guys will be asking. So I'm honored to be here, and thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. So the first question really harkens back to what Principal Bates mentioned in terms of the COVID context. and that there is a huge shift right now where many students are in virtual learning experiences or a part of homeschooling. And certainly as a parent with 2 children who are engaged in virtual learning, it feels as if we are homeschooling as well, even though they're in a virtual learning space. We have an audience of teachers and school counselors, some that are in service and many of whom are studying to be new teachers and school counselors. I would like to ask all of you, how are you evaluating your teachers? What are some of the metrics that you're using? What are the qualities that you look for that demonstrate effective teaching in this virtual learning space? And then also, how are you helping teachers in terms of professional development and support? And we'll start with Principal Bates and then circle back to Principal McDavid and then finally Principal Gaston.
Okay, so with our school district, we have been full virtual this year. And I'll give a little bit of a background before I talk about how we're evaluating teachers. So we started the year as full virtual. We are in a very, very, very rural area. Many of our students, we are, first of all, technology rich. So we didn't have an issue with the devices. We did not have an issue with the iPads, the Chromebooks. We had all of that. The main issue for us was with service. Many of our students in this area, they did not have access to internet services in the area in which they live. So what our district purchased hotspots for all of the students who were not able to access internet services, as well as teachers who may need those services. And so once we had that in place, then we began with live virtual instruction. So I know in many areas, students are similar to a college course where you will place those assignments in the system and you will allow students to just go through at their own pace. Well, we did not do that. We had teachers to plan lessons. We used the learning management system Canvas, and we had teachers to place their assignments in Canvas, but we provided live instruction. So students will log on at 8 o'clock in the morning. Teachers would provide direct instruction. They would do their modeling. They would do guided practice, and they would allow students to do independent practice. And then from there, we would assess students online using that platform. So with the observation, we utilized an observation feedback form where I would log on to the Google Meet. We use the Google Meet platform. I would log on and I would look for whether or not the teacher was on task. We wanted to know if what the teacher was doing was conducive to learning. And we did go over this with teachers beforehand. So teachers understood what we were looking for. We look for accessible material. Did students have their packets if we sent learning packets home? Did students have access to Study Island or the iReady platform that we use? We look for how teachers integrated technology. We also look for that direct instruction. We look for guided practice. We look for independent practice, whether there was a lot of classroom discussion, if teachers were talking to students, if students were able to convey what they had learned throughout the lesson. We looked at whether they were teachers were creative. Were they doing group projects? So we've had several teachers to have students complete group projects where they would add slides to a presentation, and then they would all present it as a group. We look for whether or not teachers were checking for understanding. If they were using high order questioning skills, we look for whether or not teachers are choosing non-volunteers, whether they were given enough think time. So we still observe teachers. In our school district, we were required to complete at least 4 30-minute observations per day. So we still made sure that teachers were doing everything that they would do in the regular classroom each day. And so we did observe teachers during the full virtual. Now we have transitioned back to in-person learning. And so we're still using the same form because we're still using we're still looking for those same things within the classroom, but we also bring into that the climate, the culture, if it's conducive to learning within the classroom, and making sure that we
Principal Bates, if I can also ask, are you using the same systems or the same processes for your school counselors, or are they evaluated differently?
We use the same process for our school counselor, except, you know, the with the direct instruction and things like that. We only look for that when she's doing her instruction with her if she's doing group lessons. So other than that, we will look at other components with the counselor, and I'll just go over a couple of things that we look for with her. We look at evidence that she's reaching out to parents. If she's reaching out to parents, if she is working towards her SMART goals. So what we do is we develop SMART goals at the beginning of the year. And because we were in a virtual setting, of course, many of her SMART goals had to do with making sure that students and parents understand what we were looking for in the virtual environment and kind of bridging that gap between school and home. And so those were her SMART goals. And so with her evaluation, we wanted to make sure that we target her SMART goals.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. And there were some key things that I heard that I want to make sure come across to the rest of the audience. And that's that when looking at teachers and evaluating teachers, there is still a strong emphasis on student engagement. And there's still a strong emphasis on effective practices beyond just direct instruction, but incorporating technology, doing group projects in the virtual space. A lot of those best practices that we use can be changed and adapted to a virtual space. And then in terms of our school counselors, making sure that there is proper communication and links between the school counseling department and parents seems to be a big focus of their evaluation as well. I want to move to Principal McDavid. Can you share with us how you are evaluating your teachers and school counselors?
Yes, ma'am. And much like Principal Bates, our classroom walkthrough tool that we use incorporate all of those areas that she talked about and that you referenced, including engagement. Our teachers are all trained in Kagan, which Kagan structures, which really lend themselves to engagement among students. Our school started off the school year in a hybrid environment, instructional environment setting. And then we moved now, since February, we have been full face-to-face 5 days. So during the hybrid schedule, our students came A, B days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday was a support day. And that's when our counselors, as well as other service providers, were able to really go in and provide virtual counseling sessions with not only students, but families, and offer support. And this came from other agencies within our county as well. So we were able to navigate some of the issues and concerns with our students who may have had some behavioral objectives as well as counseling goals through our hybrid instructional model. And we used the Google system for our children in CD through 4th grade and CD, child development preschool. So all of our children had individual devices that they used, and we used this like the same system or platforms so that all of our students could be well versed, in parents, and made it a lot easier for our parents to assist their students at home if they all had their individual devices, and parents were able to join and log in and ensure that those students were logging in. That's one of the critical parts during this hybrid instructional model that we came across was actually ensuring that students were logging in at the appropriate times. Parents had schedules, students had their schedules and login information, but really working together as a school team to ensure that all these things were happening. Our attendance clerk was in ensuring that children were there, and if they weren't, making phone calls to find out why. On Fridays, if children were not in those sessions, then our counselors were making those calls. We had counselors going out to homes to ensure that students' needs were met in that manner as well. As far as evaluation, and since Principal Bates talked about the walkthrough and observational data that she's collected, our leadership team did the same. But our evaluation system for new teachers, continuing contract teachers, and counselors continued, even though we are in a COVID situation. I'm sorry, my assistant principal is not here today.
That's great. That's great. Thank you, Principal McDavid.
I'm sorry, can I say something about the evaluation system real quick?
Sure.
I just wanted to say that the state of South Carolina, recognizing that this was a COVID situation, did make some modifications to our state evaluation system. We continue to ensure that the teacher evaluation process was in place, although it was modified and very flexible for our teachers. So I've been able to do that in the hybrid model, of course, through attending those virtual sessions, going in for following and looking for the same domains other than environment, which was something that we could not potentially do not being in the classroom. But the evaluation cycle took place. Teachers have been evaluated throughout the year, regardless of COVID. So with some flexibility in place.
And that's a very good point that I want to get across to the audience as well, is that these cycles still continued. The teacher accountability systems, in most places, the student accountability systems still continued, and teachers and school counselors were still held to meet those expectations, even though there was some flexibility because of the changes in COVID. But it did not take away from shifting to those online spaces and the expectations of best practices and performance and the integration of technology. And I think what Principal McDavid just talked about was how technology is going to play a big role even after COVID and many of our schools adjust and then they come back to even an in-person classroom structure. We can see technology be a big role in the classroom. So now we're going to have Principal Gaston. Can you tell us how you are evaluating your teachers and school counselors?
Sure. Just to piggyback off the other two principals, we definitely have realized we're in unprecedented times and allow for some grace when it comes to observations. From the beginning of the year, me along with my deans really develop relationships with our teachers where they see evaluations as more of coaching and support. So when we push in to have to observe them, it's not as intimidating. And what we really did is took our rubric and converted it almost to an online platform because our teachers really wanted to know from us, I mean, on a granular level, like, what is it going to look like? What does engagement look like? And so one of the things that helped us so much, we use Paul Bambrick's Get Better Faster. We refer to it a lot. And he developed a Get Better Faster scope and sequence for online support. And it's free, it's online. And what it did was help really ground us in what does engagement look like? When we go into breakout rooms, what should we see happening? What should teachers do to ensure that breakout rooms are effective? It really helped our teachers really grasp and get a handle on exactly what it should look like. And that helped them a ton. We use Nearpod a lot because sometimes the kids don't talk. So when we use Nearpod, we can actually go in and see, kids' responses to online questions. They can do discussion boards. And we also use Schoology a lot. Ms. Bates mentioned that we were a one-to-one school already, so we didn't have a technology issue somewhat, but just really for our teachers, getting used to the fact that we're online, and from us convincing them of what it should look like was a huge step. Our counselors have played a huge role because part of our plan to the state as to how we were going to do hybrid learning had a big SEL focus and counselors pushing in to do advisory. So our counselors, they push in every Wednesday. They do this big advisory component. When we can't find kids, every day we're on the phone with my Dean of Scholars. They're doing truancy phone calls. Hey, I missed you. You weren't in homeroom. They play such a big part of it. We send out a Google Doc to our kids as well, and they can respond on there and say, like, I need a counselor. I'm not feeling well today. And the counselors check that and do individual check-ins as well. So we've just really had to drill all the way down, and also realizing that a lot of this in this pandemic is taking care of the teachers so they can take care of our kids. And it has worked really well. We're in an observation season now, starting on our focus observation, and we're actually allowing them to send us videos, which I actually like because I can kind of rewind and go back and rewind again. And I told them for this one, send me a video of your best work. What do you think is your best work? And giving them that grace and autonomy has helped tremendously.
I love that idea. Love that idea, because there were two things that a lot of the teachers who are currently in the field do say about evaluation, not just during this COVID context, but even prior to that. And that is, what does it look like? At that very basic level, what are you looking for when you come in and you complete walkthroughs? Because a lot of times my interpretation, for example, of in instructional technology might be different from the expectations that you have, or of differentiated instruction, or of assessment uses and assessment practices. So what are you looking for specifically is always helpful to teachers, as well as, can I have my recordings if my classes are being recorded and you're not always able to see me, but you're dropping in during observation? Can I record one of my best sessions to you so that you can have an idea of what I do, not just on a daily basis, but also something that I did was very fun and very creative that you may not have seen just in that moment. So I think the three of you, for your experience, it has been invaluable to our new teachers and school counselors. What advice would you have for them? And I do see a couple of questions that are in the chat, so we're going to get to those questions from the audience. Thank you, Ed. You had an excellent question, and I was thinking myself. But if you have any questions for these principals, because they have given some time over to us today, please drop them into the chat. Our last official question for you all is, what advice do you have for new teachers and school counselors? And we will start with Principal Gaston, and then move to Principal McDavid, and then finally Principal Bates. So we'll start with Principal Gaston first.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they already are in positions, but I think my biggest advice, and I know we're in hiring season right now, is to remember that you are valuable too. And when you go into these interviews, remember you're interviewing the school as well. Really figure out whether your vision aligns with the principals. Ask questions to really figure out whether or not the goals you have, is this a school where I can move up? If you want to move up, are they building the capacity of teachers to be leaders? Like, you need to really dig in and make sure that your vision is aligned with that of the schools, and ask questions. Remember, teachers are invaluable right now, and a good counselor, oh my God, totally invaluable. So just remember that, and just remember grace, and take care of yourselves. That's really important, taking care of yourself.
Excellent points. Thank you. And you are right. A good counselor is worth his or her weight in gold. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're now going to go to Principal McDavid. Any advice?
Yes, Principal Gaston gave some very, very good advice. I would just like to add, build professional relationships as you are moving into your field, and once you get into a school, or as you move from school to school, or even among schools. Build professional relationships. You can really, really learn a lot from others who are already practitioners in your field. Observe and learn from veteran and master teachers and counselors. If your principal allows opportunities for you to do observations to see really good, strong teaching and counseling, take advantage of those opportunities, learn from them, make them your own. But we as principals even do that. We learn from other principals and we quote unquote steal ideas and modify them for our own population of students. And finally, just always be a lifelong learner and make sure you keep and maintain a growth mindset. That's the advice I would give to anyone in education, whether you're a novice teacher or a master or veteran teacher. Be a lifelong learner, willing to learn with a growth mindset.
I want to underscore and put a star around everything she just said. So those of you who are in my class, this is something that we're going to talk about on tomorrow. Exactly what she said about building professional networks and relationships. It starts now. And even when you are completing your practicums and you're completing your classes now, please know that this is a small community. The community of educators is very small, especially if you're in a smaller city like Albany. We all know each other. We all talk to one another. So you want to build relationships where you are, and you want to always do your best and put your best foot forward in any environment or experience that you're at, because it is a small campus. It is a small community. When you do well, others will hear about it. And when you don't do as well, others will hear about that too. Building those professional relationships can get you further than almost anything else in your career, as well as being a lifelong learner. So you want to start with building strong foundations and relationships right here at Albany State, as well as all of the educators in the community that you come into contact with as part of your practicum experiences. So put a pin in everything she just said. That was excellent. Thank you, Principal McDavid. And then finally, Principal Bates.
So my advice for new teachers and school counselors would be to be open and flexible to change. We do know that education is continually changing from year to year. Be open to learning new technology, the latest strategies, anything that you can utilize within your school to help build your school. So just be open and flexible to change, because nothing remains the same. You're going to have to learn some type of new technology. You're going to have to learn some type of new strategy. So you have to be open to that, to change.
Thank you. That is another excellent point. We have just a couple of questions from our chat that I am going to ask, if you don't mind. Ed, are you here with us? Can you ask your question directly to our guests?
I sure can. So I had the question of, will the school systems be continuing the services that were added during COVID for the following school years? So I know that Principal McDavid was saying that she has counselors that actually go out to the families. So will that be continued?
Yes, and that's a really good question. We have learned that even in what we consider to be very dismal periods with the COVID pandemic, that we have really been able to make adjustments in education that are quite positive. So out of a bad situation, we have found some good. And among those good things would be continuing our community outreach, something that we started as a way to reach our children and our families during the pandemic. Other things that we're going to continue is our virtual school. Our district took upon itself a huge task of creating and implementing an actual virtual school within the school district. So 125 of my students are in our Horry County virtual school, but they're still mine. So I'm continuing to evaluate those teachers and make sure I'm analyzing the data of those children. I'm still responsible for it. But that's another thing that we're going to continue to offer, even though our COVID situation has somewhat eradicated here to the point that we are now full 5-day face-to-face, but we're still using the virtual platforms. We're still having counselors go out. We're still bringing in support systems from within the community. We're still continuing and strengthening our social emotional curriculum and those services to students. So yes, we found some good things, Ed, that we're going to continue even when we're out of the pandemic situation.
Thank you. And we have another question from Ms. Davenport. Zari, are you still with us? Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I am. Okay, my question was, are your schools just focusing on math and ELA, or do you guys do science, like all subjects, every day?
So here at Dundee Elementary in Tunica County School District, we have to still focus on every subject. Students still have to meet those requirements that are set forth by the school district and as well as the state. So we still have to cover all subjects within virtual learning. Yes.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Ms. McDavid.
I just wanted to add to that, and I kind of understand where that question is coming from, because in our state, in South Carolina, the main focus are on those core content areas, ELA and math. However, we are also ensuring that our students are receiving science and social studies instruction, but our instructional focus, I should say, has primarily during the hybrid model been on the ELA and math standards.
Hey, and I'll just say for our high school, because we're still having our end of course assessments, our primary focus really has been on any state tested subject. So we are still doing 9th and 10th grade ELA, but we're also focused on Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, Biology, and U.S. History as well, because those subjects are still state tested and really impact the ACT, which is also a part of, our scorecard. So definitely still focused on all subjects.
Thank you. We have another question from Nicole. Nicole, are you still with us? And can you unmute your microphone?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, Dr. DeCore and principals. I did have a question for with going to virtual. I know one school, I forgot what principal it was, they said you all were completely virtual. For parents and teachers that weren't so technology ready, did you all offer information, or did you all give out classes to the parents and teachers that weren't caught up with the technology for the new ways of presenting your instruction and logging on, checking to see if students are still on, things of that nature, dealing with the technology for virtual learning?
In my district, we provided a ton of support to not just scholars, but parents and teachers. We spent probably a couple of weeks, and we were already one-to-one and really technology driven, but of course, moving to virtual was totally different. So we spent a couple of weeks really going over what key asynchronous instruction looks like, what synchronous instruction should look like, just kind of really drilling it down. And then we did this with our parents, and we still have like tech support lines open. Our parents know they can come to the gym and get tech support whenever. So just try to provide a lot of support to our parents and teachers. And they've done a really great job with just taking it on.
So
did any other want to add? Okay, Principal Bates. Okay.
Yes, I was just going to add, in addition to what she stated, we have hired a professional technology firm to come in and provide support for our teachers bi-weekly. And so they do get bi-weekly support in whatever area that they're struggling. So we send out a form to let them complete the form, letting us know what areas they need support, and then we bring a professional firm in to provide this support.
Thank you. I believe we have one final question. Michaela, can you unmute your mic? Are you still with us?
Yes, ma'am. And good afternoon, Dr. DeCure and visitors. My question, I actually have two questions. My first question pertains to testing. I was wondering, did you guys modify the testing in any way due to COVID? And I'm gonna just put my second question out there. My second question was, are you guys going to implement any like remediation, like because of COVID?
Good afternoon. I can tell you a little bit about what we're doing with testing. our state, like many other states, did apply for a waiver with the federal government however, that was not granted. So all of our students will be participating in statewide testing. This week, we did find out that the federal government, although they denied our waiver for the second time, our students who are in the virtual platform will not count against our report card. That was very concerning for principals because we would be responsible for the scores of students who had been in virtual all year outside of our building. We were required to bring them in, and all students had to be tested in the school, brick and mortar school environment. So that's how our testing has been affected. We will be testing in those areas as we normally would. No concessions have been made. However, we've been planning and preparing for that all year and through progress monitoring of our students and interventions. And that's one of the things that we've done to address what we call the COVID slide. Fortunately, our students have not digressed as much as we thought they would have, and their test scores are very, very good, surprisingly, during this time. So we are looking forward actually to our statewide testing to see if the things that we did put in place, how effective they're going to be for our student scores.
Thank you. I want to close by asking if there are other special guests or school leaders who are here in the seminar and wanted to give some final parting words to our teacher candidates and candidates in the counseling program. I invite any of you to provide us some parting words or some advice that you would like to provide to these students. And if we don't have any others, then I would just like to say a special thank you to all of our special guests, principals and school leaders. You took this time out from your very busy schedule to share some of your words of wisdom with our students here at ASU. There's many things that they said that I hope you guys took notes on. You thought about it and you reflected upon, because they're giving you good advice about what can you expect as a new teacher or a new counselor in the next school year. One of the things that we really heard from our guests that I want to reiterate is one, that technology is here to stay. We heard that there was different types of individual devices and supports that were given to our students. Some schools were one-to-one schools before COVID, and some became sort of an interim one-to-one school. Even as they return back to face-to-face classes, those devices are very important and are a big part of instructional technology and just general instruction, I think, moving forward. The next thing is, our principals are still looking for engagement. They're still looking for students to talk to one another, to have discussions, to do group projects, even if they are in a virtual space. And the last thing we heard is definitely take care of yourself. Give yourself a little bit of grace. Be ready to be flexible, because education is forever changing. There's always a new model. There's always a new technology that comes out, and you have to be able to adjust and to move forward. And then finally, I really heard from our school leaders is that they are instructional leaders. They have some really good and strong ideas about best practices in the schools and for supporting their teachers. So thank you again for joining us. If there were any final words that any other member of the staff or faculty wanted to add to this conversation before we close, I invite you all, either from our leadership faculty, teacher education faculty. We have administrators here on the line as well. So if anyone wanted to say some words as we close the seminar, you can do so at this moment.
To ladies that are volunteered to do this, I want to say thank you. I really appreciate it. Dr. DeQueer, we tried to give you a little bit of all. We have Ms. Bates, Principal Bates, and there she's in a strictly rural area. You have Principal McDavid, hers is in a city. And I think you have rural and also, she can answer that one. And then Ms. Gaston, Principal Gaston, is in the heart of Memphis. So you have urban and rural and all in between with the guests that we had. And I want to thank them again for taking this time.
Thank you, Dr. DeQueer. I am Janice Carthine, currently serving as the interim chair for the School of Education, and I am so happy to see Dr. McDavid. Well, I'm saying Dr. McDavid, but that's just a plug for you to keep going, because I think that you can get there and be one of those leaders in educational leadership. But I'd like to thank all the principals who have participated in this Brown Bag seminar. We appreciate what you're doing for the children and the teachers that you serve. And so thanks again. And this has been a wonderful seminar. I've enjoyed listening to you all. At the same time, you all know I take notes. So we are, in the process of getting feedback to redesign our educational leadership. And I think what you all shared is very valuable. And at some point, definitely, we would like to have you all to come back. So thank you all so much. And thank you, Dr. DeQueer, for your leadership, and Dr. Collier for hosting this.
And Dr. DeQueer, I forgot Ms. Bates, Natasha Bates, she's one of our on-site mentors. So she's working with one of our candidates in the program.
Thank you, Dr. Ladd, for reminding me. I've seen your name now. See, I'm making connections and building those relationships, McDavid. So thank you so much for serving in that role. We really appreciate that. So if you all have other candidates or other potential applicants for our program based on your experiences with us, please send them to us, okay? Thanks.
Dr. DeQueer, may I say one more thing?
Sure.
As a part of the program, I've learned a lot. Our program focuses on equity, and in my school district, I am always looking to make my teaching staff and counseling staff more diverse. I have over 100 teachers and staff members in my school. Pre-COVID, we were 825 students, and we're looking forward to bringing those students back after COVID. So I say all that to say, if any of you would consider or would like to relocate to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina area, and you're looking for teaching or counseling positions, I would be more than happy to help you to navigate that. If I don't have anything in my school, I can also help you navigate throughout the district. We have 46,000 students in 60 schools. So
thank you. And you are welcome. Thank you very much. You are welcome to place your contact info or one of the members of your staff, maybe, who can be a contact. We do have some excellent candidates who will be graduating. If this cohort will be graduating, I believe, some of them next fall and then others next spring. So this is an excellent contact for you all if you're thinking about relocating to Myrtle Beach. It's a great area, great school system. And as you know, you may be serving under a great principal. So you want to keep that information handy. And we also have Dr. Gaston and then, Principal Gaston and Bates. If you both would like to put your information in the chat, that will be helpful to our teacher candidates as well as our school counseling candidates. And yes.
Can I add one other thing? Sure. For the principals? If they're a special type of certification that is different than what we do in Georgia, we need to know what those things are so we can kind of be transparent with the students so they can do whatever they need to get those credentials, okay?
I was going to say, actually, we do reciprocity here. So as long as they meet the praxis requirements, it's very easy for them to convert over. As long as they got certified in Georgia, they convert over very easily to Tennessee.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yes, so it's the application process. So all of you guys who are graduating soon, you want to make sure that once you get your certificate, if you're planning to go to either Florida, or to go to Mississippi or Tennessee or South Carolina, you check with the Georgia Professional Standards Commission. The process is called reciprocity, is what she's talking about. That would allow you to be able to use your teaching certificate like I did. I was certified in New York City and then moved down south to Georgia. but you can take your teaching certificate and then move it to a different state. And there are many, many candidates who do that. So thank you for that note, Dr. Carthon. That was a great point. We're going to end here on another excellent brown bag seminar. The next seminar will be at the end of May, and it will feature strategies for teaching online. And Mrs. Jefferson is going to be our featured speaker for the May brown bag seminar. So we welcome you guys to come on back. Another thank you to our special guests and all of our teacher candidates and school counseling candidates that joined us today. You all have a great, great day. Take care, everyone. Have a great day.